I found the wedding contract by accident, folded neatly in an envelope from Marseille Estate, the most expensive venue in town. My name was at the bottom, $76,000 committed in bold. Only I never signed it. The handwriting looked like mine, but it wasn't. It was my sister's, forged, approved by my parents, for her dream wedding, using my credit, my future. I've always been the responsible one, the one they leaned on, guilted, drained. But this time, they didn't ask, they just took. And that morning, with my name stolen and my silence expected, I made a decision. They could have their wedding, without me. The envelope looked elegant, expensive even. Thick, cream-coloured paper with gold-embossed lettering that read, Marseille Estate. It stood out immediately among Rachel's mail pile of bills, catalogues, and pre-approved credit card offers. Her thumb ran along the flap, unease blooming in her chest. She didn't remember entering any contests. No one she knew could afford a place like this. She opened it anyway. A neatly folded document slid into her hands. The sun caught the gold logo at the top of the page. Her eyes scanned downward until they locked onto the number, $76,000. Her breath caught, wedding contract. Below the number she saw the bride's name, Lily Morgan, her sister. Rachel's heart dropped into her stomach. The groom, Evan Michaels. The venue, Grand Ballroom, Marseille Estate. And there, at the very bottom, was Rachel's signature. She froze. No, 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 no. It looked like hers. The slant, the elegant loop on the R, even the slight upward curve at the end. But something was off. The pressure was too uniform, the strokes too practiced. Rachel stared at it, then reached for a sticky note on her desk and wrote her name out slowly, then again and again. The differences became obvious. The forgery was good, but not perfect. The truth hit her like a freight train. Lily had forged her signature. She had signed a wedding contract for $76,000 under Rachel's name. Rachel's mouth went dry. Her hand trembled as she reached for her phone and dialed the number listed at the top of the contract. Marseille Estate, this is Alina speaking, came the voice on the other end. Cheerful, warm. Hi, I'm Rachel Morgan, she said, her voice shaking. I'm calling about a wedding contract for Lily Morgan and Evan Michaels. Oh, yes, Miss Morgan, Alina practically chirped. Everyone here's been talking about your generosity. It's not every day we see a sister sponsor the entire event. Your family must be so proud. Rachel blinked. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Her family knew. You were incredibly efficient, Alina continued. The contract, the deposit, it was all handled so quickly. Your sister said you didn't want any credit for it. That's so rare these days. Tears sprang to Rachel's eyes before she could stop them. Her vision blurred. She hadn't agreed to any of this. She hadn't offered. She hadn't even been asked. Thank you, she whispered and hung up before her voice cracked. Silence settled over the room like a fog. The weight of years came crashing in at once. Years of being the responsible one, the problem solver, the fallback plan. She was the one who took extra shifts in college when Lily maxed out her card. The one who lent her graduation gift to Mom for emergencies. The one who covered Dad's tax mistake in 2018 with her emergency savings. And now they'd gone further. They hadn't just expected, they'd assumed. They didn't need her permission anymore. They just took. Rachel stood frozen in the middle of her living room, the contract dangling from her fingers. She felt used, erased, reduced to a signature, a walking wallet with a heartbeat. Her phone buzzed on the desk, a message from Lily. Just toured the ballroom. You're going to die when you see the chandeliers. I told them you were obsessed with lighting. Can we do the rose gold centerpieces too? Only $1,500 extra. Love you. Rachel stared at the message, her stomach twisting. Love you? No. They didn't love her. They loved what she gave them. Rachel sat motionless for a full minute, then wiped the back of her hand across her cheeks and opened her laptop. Her fingers hovered above the keys before she typed one word into her email search bar: wedding. A list of results filled the screen: Pinterest notifications, spam, a few bridal magazines she'd never subscribed to. But one thread stood out. Subject: Rachel's contribution. She clicked. The conversation went back nearly 2 months, between her mother, her father, and Lily. Her breath caught as she read. Mum, she always caves. Remember her reaction with the car repairs? 1 week of silence and she mailed the check. Dad, don't push too fast. Let her feel like she's making the decision. Lily, we've already told the venue she's paying. If she flips, it'll make her look crazy. Rachel's stomach twisted. She read it again, then again. They didn't just hope she'd help. They planned for her to, counted on her guilt, weaponized her past. She slammed the laptop shut and stood up too fast. Her vision blurred and her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, back against the couch, and stared into nothing. How long had this been happening? Not the wedding, not the forgery, but the pattern, the assumption, the expectation that she would pick up the pieces. It started small. One summer in high school, she'd taken extra shifts at the frozen yogurt place because Lily had spent all her allowance on clothes and needed gas money. Rachel covered it, and Mom called her such a little adult. She remembered beaming at the praise. Then came college. Rachel got a scholarship. Lily didn't. Rachel went to community college. Lily went to a private university. Rachel lived at home. Lily got an apartment. Rachel's tuition was paid. Rachel's savings went toward Lily's textbooks. You'll make more later anyway, Mom had said. It's all family money. She'd paid for Lily's spring break trip after Lily's boyfriend dumped her. Paid off Lily's first credit card. Co-signed the second. Loaned money for Lily's wedding shower last year, which Lily later claimed wasn't a loan. It was a gift. Dad's business hit a rough patch, and Rachel wrote a $2,000 check to get him through the month. That month turned into 3, then 6. Mom needed new tires. Rachel paid for them. All the while she told herself this was love, family, what eldest daughters do. But now she saw it for what it was. Not love, not obligation, manipulation. Rachel stood slowly and returned to her laptop. She opened a blank Excel sheet. In cell A1 she typed, family debts. She scrolled through bank statements, credit card activity, and emails. It was like unspooling a thread that had been wrapped around her for years. Row after row filled the screen. $850, Lily's textbooks. $500 spring break trip. $2,000, Dad's emergency business expense. $200 on Mom's tires. $3,400 credit card payoff. $600 wedding shower gift. $800 rent supplement during COVID. $1,750 surprise birthday for Lily. $900 Lily's dress for cousin's wedding. $5,000 co-signing default. $600 bailout on overdraft fees. $100 grandma's inheritance redirected. $2,300 last minute vacation rebooking. $400 emergency phone replacement. $1,750 on medical bill cover-up. The list continued. By the time she hit row 50, she had a total $42,387. She stared at the number, and then underneath it she typed plus $76,000 forged wedding contract. Her breath trembled. The number glared back, over $118,000. She had spent more money on fixing her family than she had on building a life of her own. Her apartment furniture was second-hand. Her car had over 120,000 miles. She still made her own coffee at home, while Lily sent selfies sipping champagne in pre-wedding spa robes. Rachel closed the laptop slowly, like sealing a tomb. A noise pinged from her phone, a new message from Lily. Just saw the cake tasting options. OMG, we have to get the lemon lavender. $300 extra, but so worth it. You're the best. Rachel didn't reply. She deleted the message and turned her phone face down. Her family thought she'd never break. They were wrong. Rachel woke up the next morning with the imprint of her laptop keyboard faintly marked on her cheek. The screen had gone dark hours ago, but the spreadsheet was still open. Family debts glared back at her in bold black font, a silent monument to years of quiet surrender. She stared at the total again, over $118,000, an entire down payment on a home, enough to wipe out her student loans twice over, and not a single dollar of it had ever come back. Not once. No IOU, no payment plan, no thank you, I'll get it back to you when I can. The scary part wasn't the money. It was the way no one even thought she might expect repayment. They never even asked, because she was Rachel, the steady one, the reliable one, the one who always came through. She dragged the laptop to the edge of the couch and saved the file, naming it invisiblescars.xlsx, and backing it up on an external drive. It felt dramatic, but right. She was sipping her second coffee of the morning when her phone rang. Mum. Rachel let it go to voicemail, then it rang again. Same caller. Third time, she picked up. Rachel, honey, her mother said without even a hello. Did you see Lily's message about the flower upgrade? The venue needs confirmation today. Rachel closed her eyes and took a slow breath. No, I haven't. Well, it's just an extra $2,000 for the peonies and imported orchids. The planner said they'd look stunning under the ballroom lighting. Oh, and they need your card to confirm. There it was, not a question. A demand wrapped in pleasantries. Mom, Rachel said slowly, trying to steady her voice. I'm not paying for flowers. Silence. Then came the sigh. Long, disappointed. This isn't like you, her mother said. You've always understood family sacrifices. Rachel's stomach clenched. She stared at her coffee cup. It was chipped. She hadn't replaced it because she was still paying off Lily's rent from last spring. Maybe it should be like me, she said quietly. What's that supposed to mean? It means, Rachel said, louder now, that I never agreed to pay for any of this. Not the venue, not the cake, not the flowers, and I definitely didn't sign that contract. Her mother's voice sharpened. Rachel, don't make this difficult. Lily is under a lot of pressure. You know she's not as stable as you. She needs this to go perfectly. Rachel laughed. It came out brittle and humorless. Of course she does. She always needs. And I always give. I just don't understand where this is coming from, her mother continued. You've always been such a good daughter. That word, good, it had kept her quiet for years. Good meant agreeable, obedient, useful. I'm still a good daughter, Rachel said, just not a doormat. Her mother's tone turned icy. I hope you're not becoming one of those selfish women who forgets where she came from. Rachel flinched but held her ground. I haven't forgotten. That's the problem. She ended the call without saying goodbye. Her hands were shaking, but it wasn't fear this time. It was adrenaline. For the first time in decades, she'd said no, a real no, not the timid kind with caveats and guilt, a full, confident, closed-door no. She braced herself for the tidal wave of guilt that usually followed, but it didn't come, not this time. Instead, a strange sensation settled in her chest, foreign but familiar. It was pride. After the call ended, Rachel sat in stunned silence. Her coffee had gone cold, but she didn't care. Her mind buzzed like static. Her heart, still racing from the confrontation, began to settle into something heavier, something darker. She opened her laptop again. Just for curiosity, she told herself, she navigated to her credit report. It had been over a year since she last checked. She typed in her details, waited through the identity verification screens, and then her stomach dropped. Her credit score had fallen, 40 points. Scrolling down, she found the reason, a hard inquiry from Marseille Estate. And worse, beneath that, a new line of credit opened under her name. She clicked. It had been opened a month ago, linked to a luxury vendor associated with the wedding. Available credit, $25,000. Usage, $17,600. Her mouth went dry. They hadn't just forged a signature. They'd opened a line of credit in her name. That wasn't generosity. That was theft. A line from Lily's email echoed in her mind. She won't fight us. She never does. Rachel wanted to scream. Instead, she took a screenshot of the report, saved it in a new folder titled Evidence, and grabbed her phone. She dialed Victor. He picked up on the second ring. "Hey, what's wrong?" "They opened a credit line in my name," she said, voice tight. "Marseille Estate pulled a hard inquiry. Someone used my details, probably Mom or Lily." Silence. Then, "That's not normal, Rach, that's identity theft." "I know. No, you really need to hear this," he said. "That's not love. That's not even dysfunction. That's abuse. Financial abuse. They've crossed a legal line." Rachel blinked hard. Abuse. The word landed like a thunderclap. So clear. So final. "You always protect them," Victor continued gently. "But who protects you?" Tears sprang to her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Tired of paying for love that never comes back." There was a pause. Then Victor asked, "What would you do if you didn't owe anyone anything?" She didn't hesitate. "I'd leave." The answer startled her with its clarity. She would leave. Leave the city, the expectations, the guilt. She'd pack up her quiet life and start over where no one knew her as the responsible one, where her name didn't equal obligation. It was the first time she'd considered it seriously. Later that day, back at the office, she found herself staring blankly at her design software. Her layout for the Harbourview renovation was due in 2 days, but her focus was elsewhere. Samantha, her manager, walked by and paused. "You okay?" Rachel hesitated. Then, "You ever feel like running away?" Samantha smirked. "At least twice a week." Rachel smiled for the first time all day. "You've been quiet," Samantha said. "Not like you." Rachel shrugged. "It's just family stuff." Samantha nodded knowingly. "Tough week?" Rachel laughed softly. "Tough decade." Samantha tilted her head. "You ever think about getting out of here? Starting fresh?" Rachel blinked. "Actually, yeah. I might have something for you then," Samantha said. "The Charleston office is expanding. They're looking for a senior designer to lead their residential division. I already floated your name." Rachel sat up straighter. "What?" "They loved your portfolio, said your aesthetic is exactly what they want. I didn't want to overwhelm you, but if you're interested, I can connect you." Rachel stared at her. Charleston, a different city, a clean slate. No Lily, no forged contracts, no phone calls asking for flower deposits. Just herself. She felt her pulse quicken, not in panic, but in something dangerously close to hope. "I think I'm interested," she said quietly. Samantha smiled. "Good, because they're very interested in you." Rachel nodded slowly, the wheels already turning. For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like she was running away from something. She was finally running towards something. The smell of rosemary chicken filled the house, but Rachel couldn't taste anything. Sunday dinners at her parents' used to be her favourite tradition. Now they felt like weekly ambushes. She stepped inside, clutching the wine bottle she'd brought. Out of habit, not goodwill. The living room was buzzing. Relatives she hadn't seen in months mingled with family friends, each one offering hugs and knowing smiles. "Rachel, our angel!" Aunt Grace beamed, pulling her into a tight embrace. "Funding Lily's wedding. What a saint." Rachel's stomach dropped. What?" But before she could say more, her mother swooped in, linking arms with her. "Come, honey, the Hendersons were just asking about Marseille Estate. You know, the place you insisted on." Her mouth went dry. "You insisted on?" The room spun slightly. They'd turned her absence of protest into enthusiastic consent. As she was pulled toward the dining room, she noticed the decorations. A banner over the fireplace. "To Rachel, sister, sponsor, superstar. What fresh hell was this?" Her father raised a glass. "We're so proud of our eldest. She wouldn't hear of anything less than the best for her sister's big day." Everyone clapped. Rachel froze at the edge of the room, smile frozen in place like a porcelain mask. "No," she whispered, but no one heard. She hadn't agreed to this. She hadn't volunteered. And yet, here she was, centre stage in a play she hadn't auditioned for. A cousin passed her a glass of champagne. Rachel took it but didn't drink. She needed air. But before she could escape, Lily appeared at her side, grinning like a pageant queen. "Guess what came today?" she said, holding up a photo on her phone. "Mock-up of the centerpieces, crystal teardrops and gold-sprayed orchids, only $3,500. But they said you approved, so they rushed production." Rachel blinked. "What do you mean I approved?" Lily laughed. "Don't be silly. I showed them your signature from the initial contract. They assumed it was still valid." Rachel nearly dropped her glass. "You used that contract?" "Well, duh. Saves time. You don't want to be a micromanager, right?" Rachel's pulse thundered in her ears. "I never approved that," she hissed. "I didn't sign up for any of this." Lily's smile faded just slightly. "Rach, don't make a scene. People are watching." "Then maybe they should hear the truth." Lily leaned in, voice icy. "You want to humiliate Mom and Dad? Ruin their night? This is your chance." Rachel felt like she couldn't breathe. Her mother approached, all glowing cheeks and perfectly curated joy. "Isn't she wonderful?" she asked the guests. "Rachel's always been the giving one." The word hit harder than it should have. Giving, not loving, not brave, not valued, just useful. Her father clapped her on the shoulder. "We're all so lucky she's in the family." Rachel couldn't move, couldn't speak. It was too big, too loud, too public. She swallowed the truth just like she always had and smiled, but her hands were trembling. Later that evening, after most of the guests had gone, Lily cornered her again in the kitchen. "You looked tense all night," she said, tilting her head. "Everything okay?" Rachel said nothing. "Don't worry," Lily added. "I handled the planner stuff. Just needed your card for the lighting package. It's theatrical lighting. You'll love it." Rachel turned to her slowly. "My card?" Lily grinned. "Relax. I only authorized the deposit. They'll bill you next month." Rachel gripped the counter to steady herself. Something inside her cracked. Not shattered. Not broken. Split. She smiled again, but this one didn't reach her eyes. "Thanks for letting me know," she said softly, and in her mind she was already packing her bags. Rachel stood by the sink, her face neutral, eyes on the champagne flutes she was rinsing. Lily had wandered off, chattering to a bridesmaid about signature cocktails. Rachel could still hear the words echoing in her mind. "Just needed your card for the lighting package." She'd hit her limit, and yet she smiled. She smiled because she knew now direct resistance was useless. Her family didn't listen to no, but they underestimated silence. They mistook composure for surrender. Fine, let them. She would play along, just long enough. The next morning, Rachel texted Lily, "Can we go over the planner details together? I want to make sure everything's coordinated." Lily responded with 3 heart emojis and a time, 3 p.m. at my place. "You're the best." Rachel arrived early and cheerful, playing the role of the doting older sister. She even brought pastries. Marissa, the wedding planner, showed up with her usual flair, perfectly manicured, over-accessorized, and utterly efficient. She pulled out 3 portfolios and began flipping through colour schemes, vendor contracts, and RSVP spreadsheets like she was planning a royal coronation. Rachel listened attentively, nodding at all the right moments. "So," Marissa said, tapping one folder, "the lighting package is being fast-tracked. Premium theatrical effects. Per your prior approval, of course." Rachel tilted her head. "Remind me what that includes again?" "Uplighting. Ceiling washes, custom gobo projections, the full experience. We already got the deposit using your billing info from the venue." Rachel's voice stayed calm. "That's great. Mind if I take a look at the invoice?" "Of course." Marissa handed it over with a smile. Rachel flipped through the pages casually while sliding her phone out of her purse. The camera shutter sound was off. She snapped a quick photo of the invoice, then another of the contract summary. "Do you mind if I take these with me?" Rachel asked. "I just want to review them before final sign-off." "Oh, no need," Marissa said sweetly. "Everything has your digital signature already from the original file. Lily said you were streamlining approvals." Rachel nodded slowly, her stomach turning. Of course she did. That night, back in her apartment, she sent the photos and notes to Victor. He called instantly. "This is textbook identity fraud," he said. "She used your digital signature without consent to approve major financial transactions." "I figured." "The planner has no idea, though. You've got them thinking you're on board." "I needed confirmation," Rachel said. "Now I have it." Victor sighed. "You need to get out of there, seriously, before they drag your credit into the abyss." "I'm already working on it." "Wait, what?" Rachel opened her laptop and pulled up the Charleston firm's email. She hovered over the schedule interview button. "I've got a potential job. Charleston, senior designer." Victor whistled. "Big move. Big life." He went quiet for a second. "You'd be great there." "I know. But your lease—" "I know," she said again. "That's the one thing left." "Good news there," Victor said. "I looked it up. Tenant protection laws say if you're a victim of identity theft, especially with documentation, you can break your lease early without penalty." Rachel froze. "Seriously?" "Seriously, you'll need evidence, credit reports, screenshots, emails, but you've already started compiling that." A smile crept onto her face. Not the brittle kind she wore at family dinners. A real one. The first in weeks. "I think I'm ready." "You sure?" "No, but I'm going anyway." After they hung up, Rachel clicked the interview scheduling link. A calendar popped up with open slots for the coming week. She picked Thursday, lunch hour, discreet, just enough time to sneak out of work, step into a different life, and maybe, just maybe, start over. She pressed confirm. The screen blinked. Interview scheduled. Rachel leaned back in her chair. She wasn't escaping. She was evolving. Rachel double-checked the email before hitting send. Her resume, portfolio, and references had already been reviewed, but now it was official. Her signed job offer was on its way to Charleston. A few minutes later, another email was drafted and sent. This one to a modest apartment complex just outside the city centre. It wasn't luxurious, but it had natural light, a balcony, and a quiet neighbourhood. More importantly, it was hers. No one else had a key. No one else could walk in and demand anything. She stared at the lease confirmation and the move-in date, June 14th. The same day as Lily's cake tasting. The irony wasn't lost on her. She sat back in her chair and exhaled. Her life in Charleston was becoming real, bit by bit, like puzzle pieces finally falling into place. The moving company had been scheduled, her notice to HR prepared. The only thing left was timing it all perfectly. She'd leave during the cake tasting, when her parents and Lily would be too distracted to notice. By the time they returned, Rachel would be gone, and they'd never see it coming. But that night, lying in bed, a different kind of ache pulsed in her chest. Not fear, not guilt, something heavier, sadness. She wasn't just leaving a city, she was leaving a life. A role she had played for so long, it had sunk into her bones. The good daughter, the dependable one, the fallback plan. Who was she without that? She thought about childhood dinners, where she helped Mom wash dishes while Lily flitted away to watch cartoons. About holidays spent budgeting every penny so the family could have matching outfits and decorations, things no one remembered but her. She remembered staying up late helping Lily write college application essays, even when she had her own midterms the next morning. Those moments were real, and now she had to let them go too. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was a message from Lily. A photo popped up, Lily in a white gown, radiant in a way that only confidence, not kindness, could make someone shine. Just did my final dress fitting. Evan said I looked like royalty. Also, thanks for everything, Rach. I know I give you a hard time, but you're literally the best ATM ever. Rachel blinked. She read the message again, hoping she'd misunderstood. But no, it was all there. The glittering narcissism, the passive-aggressive praise, the casual cruelty disguised as gratitude. Best ATM ever. Her throat tightened. The dress Lily wore in the photo probably cost more than Rachel's monthly rent. Her arms trembled as she locked her phone and tossed it across the bed. She lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The room felt smaller than usual, more fragile. The words looped in her mind like a cruel nursery rhyme. Best ATM ever. Best ATM ever. How long had they seen her like that? A walking bank. A vault with no password. Not a sister, not a daughter. Just a card with no expiration date. Rachel stood and walked to the kitchen. The moonlight cast pale shadows across her countertops. She poured a glass of water, her hand still shaking. Then she opened her laptop and pulled up the contract from Marseille Estate one more time. She scrolled past the fake signature, past the deposit line, past the itemized list of upgrades she never agreed to, and she stared at the total balance due. 76,000. She whispered it aloud like a curse. Then she opened a new document, titled it Final Evidence, Fraud, and dragged in screenshots of the email from Lily, the planner invoice, her credit report, and the new message. She was done collecting emotional bruises. It was time to collect receipts. The morning of June 14th dawned with a strange calm. Birds chirped outside Rachel's apartment window, oblivious to the significance of the day. Somewhere across town, her family was getting dressed for the cake tasting slices of lemon lavender and chocolate ganache while arguing over fondant. Rachel stood in the centre of her living room, surrounded by labelled boxes. The moving truck would arrive in 20 minutes. She ran her fingers over the edge of her coffee table. The wood was scratched in places, the finish slightly faded. She'd refinished it herself during a long winter, her first DIY project after grad school, back when she still believed that effort and love guaranteed appreciation. She moved through the apartment slowly, one last look at every corner. Her bookshelf, now half empty, still held a few design books she planned to carry in her car. Her favourite mug sat alone on the counter. The mug. It was white ceramic, simple, with a fine crack spiralling from the rim to the base. She'd dropped it the day she received the forged wedding contract. Coffee had splashed across the floor, and for a long moment she just stood there, stunned. She'd glued the mug back together later that night. Not because she needed it, but because it felt symbolic. She wasn't sure why she kept it after that. Now she picked it up gently, turned it in her hands, and placed it back on the counter. Next to it, she left a note scribbled on a piece of stationery. Some things, once broken, can never be the same. Her phone vibrated with a message from Lily. Don't forget to confirm the lighting by 2 p.m. They said you still haven't approved. Also, we're adding monogrammed napkins. Just 300, total steal. DHX. Rachel didn't reply. Instead, she sat down at her desk, opened her laptop, and pulled up the draft email she'd been refining for weeks. To Events à Marseille Estate. Com subject. Unauthorized signature. Wedding contract for Lily Morgan. She took a deep breath and began typing. Dear Marseille Estate, I am writing to formally inform you that the contract for the wedding of Lily Morgan and Evan Michaels, dated March 18th, bearing my name and digital signature, was not authorized by me. The signature on file is a forgery. I did not consent to any financial agreements with your venue, nor did I approve the use of my credit information. Attached are the following documents for your review: my credit report showing the unauthorized account activity, screenshots of email exchanges where I explicitly denied financial involvement, a copy of my genuine signature for comparison, a message from the bride acknowledging financial dependence without consent. I expect your team to investigate this matter immediately and remove my name from all contracts and financial obligations associated with this event. Please note, I have already begun the process of reporting the identity theft to the appropriate authorities and credit bureaus. Sincerely, Rachel Morgan. She read it twice, then clicked send. The message left her outbox with a soft whoosh. It felt quieter than it should have, not triumphant, just final. Rachel stared at the screen for a long moment. Then she stood, grabbed her purse and laptop bag, and zipped up the final moving box. The movers arrived 10 minutes later. She greeted them calmly, guiding them to each box with labels: office, kitchen, books. They worked efficiently, respectful and silent. As they lifted the last piece of furniture, her reading chair, out the door, she looked around once more. The apartment was empty now, stripped of life, but not memory. She walked over to the kitchen one last time. Her fingers brushed the handle of the mug, now cracked, now symbolic. Then she whispered, to no one in particular, "They never needed me. They just used me. And now," her voice hardened, "I don't need them either." She turned off the lights, closed the door, and locked it behind her, without looking back. Rachel had only been on the road for an hour when her phone started buzzing in the passenger seat. She ignored it. The horizon stretched wide in front of her. Charleston was still hours away, but she could already feel the difference. She wasn't running. She was relocating, reclaiming. She stopped for gas somewhere between states and glanced at her notifications. 15 missed calls, 11 texts, all from family. She didn't open them. By the time she pulled into a quiet rest stop and checked her email, it had begun. The subject line stood out in all caps: immediate response needed, wedding balance past due, from Marseille estate. She opened it calmly. The body of the email was polite, but firm. The remaining balance of $22,000 was due within 3 business days. No further extensions. The contract, they noted, had been reported as fraudulent and was under internal review. They were now contacting the secondary responsible parties, listed as Mr. and Mrs. Ethan Morgan, her parents. Rachel exhaled, long and slow. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She smiled at bad news, someone else's bad news. By nightfall, her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a call or a message. It was a screenshot sent by Victor, a Facebook post, from her mother. Heartbroken, after all we sacrificed for our daughters, to be abandoned like this. Rachel has left without warning. She refuses to speak to us, has destroyed her sister's special day, and forgotten what it means to be family. Please keep us in your prayers during this devastating time. The caption was followed by a photo, an old one. Rachel at age 10, holding Lily on her lap, both smiling. There were over 130 comments already. Aunt Grace: "Say it isn't true. Rachel always seemed so responsible." Uncle Jeff: "I'm shocked. Maybe there's a misunderstanding." Neighbour Janine: "Praying for reconciliation. Weddings are stressful on everyone." Rachel's stomach twisted. Not from guilt, but from the familiarity of the tactic. Mom had always known how to control a narrative. But not this time. Rachel closed Facebook and opened her email again. She clicked compose, addressed it to the family group thread that hadn't been used in years, and began typing. Subject: setting the record straight. "Hi everyone, I saw the recent post my mother shared, and while I wish this were a misunderstanding, it isn't. What's happening is intentional on my part." Attached to this email, you'll find screenshots of text messages where I clearly declined to pay for the wedding, a copy of the forged contract with my falsified signature, my credit report showing unauthorized activity tied to the event, A voice recording of the wedding planner referring to Rachel's approval based on documents I never signed. I've reported the fraud to the venue, and I've formally removed myself from all financial obligations related to Lily's wedding. I haven't abandoned anyone. I've chosen to protect myself after years of financial manipulation and boundary violations. This isn't about a single event, it's about a pattern. You're entitled to your opinions, but now you also have the facts. Sincerely, Rachel Morgan. She attached every file carefully, every receipt, every audio clip. Then she hit send. She waited. 5 minutes, 10. Then the responses trickled in. Cousin Jennifer, wait, they forged your signature? Lisa, her college roommate, I knew something didn't add up. You've always been the responsible one. Aunt Carol, I'm so sorry, Rachel. I had no idea. Uncle Jeff, can't believe they put this on you. Disgraceful. The tide was shifting. Her mother's version of the story was cracking. She refreshed Facebook. The post had been edited. Taking a break from social media. Please respect our privacy during this emotional time. Too late. The illusion was shattered. By the next morning, the silence was deafening and telling. Rachel's phone had stopped vibrating with frantic messages. No more middle-of-the-night guilt texts, no more family emergency calls, no threats, no apologies, just quiet. She knew better than to think it was over. It was just the calm before the next storm. Sure enough, the next storm came in the form of an unexpected call, not from her parents, but from Marissa, the wedding planner. Rachel almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of her. Hi, this is Rachel. Rachel, hi, this is Marissa Williams, Lily's planner. I'm not sure how to say this, but I wanted to reach out, off the record. Rachel sat up straighter. Okay. There's been a change in plans, significant changes. What kind of changes? Marissa hesitated. The guest list has been reduced by more than half. The venue is being scaled back. The lighting, floral designs, even the string quartet, cancelled. Lily said something about budget constraints, but Evan's mother, she made a few pointed comments. Rachel didn't respond. They're also requesting the return of all signed invoices tied to you, Marissa continued. Apparently Evan's lawyers are going through everything now. There's mention of a prenuptial agreement, one that Evan is pushing strongly. There it was. The perfect facade was crumbling, and the cracks were now public. Marissa added, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you did the right thing. I've seen a lot of weddings and a lot of family dynamics. Yours stood out in all the wrong ways. Rachel didn't know what to say. Thank you, was all she managed. After the call ended, she sat in her Charleston apartment, watching the late morning sun filter through white curtains. A strange mix of feelings swirled inside her, relief, a dash of vindication, and an ache of sadness that still lingered despite everything. Her family had used her. Now, for the first time, they were being forced to face life without her. She wasn't their ATM anymore, and the wedding of the year had just been demoted to a family cookout. Later that day, the next message came, this time from her father. He didn't text, he called repeatedly. Eventually, she answered, more out of preparation than respect. Rachel, his voice boomed before she could say anything. We need to talk. This has gone too far. She kept her voice even. Has it? I understand being upset, but dragging this out in public, humiliating your mother, embarrassing your sister, what's the end game here? Rachel stared at the wall in front of her. Pale blue, quiet, nothing like the noise of her childhood home. I didn't drag anything into the light, she said. You did that when you forged my name and maxed out my credit. You're still part of this family, he snapped, and family doesn't abandon each other. Rachel laughed softly, tired and incredulous. You abandoned me years ago. You just didn't notice. I don't know who's been filling your head with this nonsense. No one filled my head with anything, she interrupted. For once, I stopped letting you fill it. That's the difference. Silence. Then came the real threat, cloaked in sentiment. We don't give up on our own, Rachel, he said. No matter how angry you are, no matter how far you run. Rachel felt it coming, the manipulation, the twisting of words to make her feel like the villain in her own story. She didn't let it land. I'm not giving up on anyone, she said quietly. I'm just finally choosing me. There was nothing left to say after that. She hung up. That night, she watched the city lights of Charleston blink to life as dusk settled over the skyline. The apartment was still half unpacked. A stack of design books sat beside an untouched bottle of wine. Her new life wasn't perfect. It was barely formed. But it was hers. She pulled out her journal and wrote one sentence. I didn't walk away from my family. I walked toward myself. She put down the pen, closed the book, and let the silence hold her. It didn't feel empty anymore. It felt earned. The first morning Rachel woke up in Charleston, she didn't hear the old radiator clanking or her neighbour's dog barking through paper-thin walls. Instead, there was quiet, a gentle stillness that wrapped around her like a weighted blanket. She sat up in her new bed, sunlight streaming through gauzy white curtains, and realised it was the first time in years she hadn't woken up dreading the day ahead. Her apartment was modest, just one bedroom and a small balcony, but it was hers. No one else had a key. No one could borrow her space, her money, or her time. Her name was on the lease, the mailbox, the bills, and for once she wasn't afraid of that responsibility. She welcomed it. The job started 2 days after her move. The Charleston branch of East Shore Interiors was smaller than the flagship office back home, but more creative, more collaborative. Rachel was welcomed with a potted orchid, a handwritten card from the team, and an actual lunch break on her first day. An event so foreign she almost didn't know what to do with it. Her new manager, Marcus, was energetic and slightly chaotic, but full of praise. Your Harborview proposal? Clean lines, inviting textures, restrained colour palette. I knew you'd be a good fit. Rachel thanked him, quietly proud. She'd built a career over the years but never felt seen. Not truly. Here, people noticed. Her designs didn't just pass approval, they got showcased. Clients requested her by name after just 3 weeks. She started therapy at the recommendation of her HR benefits packet. It was included in her health plan, and when she first saw the flyer, she almost threw it away. But on a quiet Saturday, with no one to answer to and nothing demanding her time, she booked the first session. Dr. Levine was calm, sharp-eyed, and didn't flinch when Rachel started to explain her family. They forged a $76,000 contract in my name, she said in the first 10 minutes, and somehow I still felt guilty for leaving. Dr. Levine only nodded. That's not uncommon for survivors of emotional enmeshment and financial abuse. Survivors. The word struck something deep. Week by week they worked through it all. The tangled guilt, the invisible expectations, the loss of identity wrapped in the role of the responsible one. The first time you say no will feel like rebellion, Dr. Levine said during their third session. The second time feels like truth. Rachel carried those words with her. By the 5th week in Charleston, she no longer triple-checked her bank account in fear. She no longer held her breath when her phone buzzed. Her world had shrunk and, in doing so, made room for herself. One afternoon, Marcus poked his head into her office. Hey, we're behind on the coastal living project. Any chance you can work through the weekend? Old Rachel would have said yes before the sentence was done. This Rachel paused. I have plans, she said, but I can come in early Monday and stay late that day if needed. Marcus blinked. Oh, okay. Yeah, that works. Rachel smiled. Thanks for understanding. She waited for the internal collapse, the the guilt, the fear of disappointing someone. It never came. Instead, there was space, mental space, emotional space, freedom. That weekend, she didn't just keep her plans, she enjoyed them. She wandered King Street, browsed vintage bookstores, and sat alone in a cafe for 2 hours without checking her phone. When the barista asked if she wanted a refill, she said yes. She didn't owe anyone her time. She no longer needed permission to rest. On Sunday, she journaled. She used to scribble in bullet points and rushed lists. Now her pages filled with full sentences, sometimes even joy. I said no, and nothing exploded. At work the next week, Tara, a junior designer, stopped by Rachel's desk looking stressed. "I need advice," she whispered. "A client's asking for 5 extra renderings and pushing for it outside of scope. I want to say no, but I'm scared they'll pull the project." Rachel looked at her and saw an earlier version of herself, eager, anxious, bending under the pressure to please. "You can say no," Rachel said softly. "You can offer compromises, but you're allowed to have boundaries." Tara looked relieved. "They never taught us that in design school." "No one taught me either," Rachel said, "but I'm learning." She was. Every day. 6.2 wird Jujunkin Sitstotu. Va wird Theodan Isau dan I Vietlan 2.6. Housewarming am Ab. Han Juoch tu Tai tu Victor. Chau Kai tu Samantha. Kam Giach Giajin Datsu. Han an Kwoi downsize Kualili. Hongsong Gian Chitain Hen Hom. Rachel Viet Vaun Hat Ki. Tathu Kong kan Nangoi Kach Han Loi. Tathu La Buk Ji Kuarieng Min. Viet Truyen ken Tri Jan Noi. The housewarming party was small, intentionally so. Just 6 people, a cheese board Rachel had Googled how to assemble, and a bottle of wine gifted by her neighbour who barely knew her name but liked her quiet energy. That's what she had now, quiet energy. No forced smiles, no strategic family politics, just people who showed up because they wanted to, not because they expected something in return. Victor flew in from out of state, suitcase in hand, and a teasing smirk on his face. "Look at you, Rachel Tumo," he said, hugging her tightly. "This place smells like eucalyptus and boundaries." She laughed, a real belly-deep laugh that she hadn't let herself feel in years. Samantha arrived a little later with a massive fiddle leaf fig wrapped in a bow and a note that read, "May your roots grow deep and your light never dim." Rachel stared at it longer than she meant to. It was just a plant, but also not. It was recognition, investment, care. They sat on floor cushions, swapped stories, and passed wine like college kids, pretending to be grown-ups. But this time, it wasn't pretending, they were grown. And Rachel finally felt it, not like a performance, but a truth she'd earned. Later that night, after everyone had left and the dishes were stacked in the sink, she found a small envelope tucked into one of her design books. Her name written in Victor's handwriting. She opened it carefully. "Rachel, you once told me that safety was a luxury, that you never really felt it, not at home, not with your family, not even with your success. I hope this place proves you wrong. I've never seen anyone rebuild themselves so quietly and so completely. You don't owe anyone your pain or your past. You get to decide who you are now. And I'm proud, so proud, to know this version of you. Love, Victor." The tears came fast and without shame. She sat on her living room floor, clutching the letter like it was something sacred. This is what family feels like, she thought. Not obligation, not guilt, just presence, just kindness. 2 days later, an email from an unfamiliar address popped up in her inbox, lilyevanwedding@edgemail.com. The subject line, "Photos? Thought you'd want to see." For a moment, Rachel hesitated. Her old instinct was to delete it, bury it, move forward, but she clicked. The photos loaded slowly. Gone were the extravagant table arrangements and floor-to-ceiling drapery she'd seen in early planning documents. No orchestra, no towering cake. The ceremony looked intimate, 30, maybe 40 guests. Lily wore a simpler gown, hair pulled back in a bun instead of cascading curls. She looked ordinary, happy maybe, but not dazzling. The photos didn't sting the way Rachel thought they might. Instead, they felt distant, like watching a movie she no longer had a role in. And she was fine with that. No bitterness, no spike of anger, just relief. She closed the email and pulled out her journal. She wrote for a while, about the fig tree, the laughter over mismatched plates, and how the Charleston sunset looked different every evening. She wrote about Tara's growth at work, her therapy sessions, and the strange but wonderful freedom of buying flowers just for herself. Then she wrote a line she hadn't dared until now. Forgiveness doesn't require an apology. It's not a gift for them. It's a freedom for me. She underlined it twice. Then she closed the journal, took a sip of her tea, and turned off her phone for the night. The sand was cool beneath Rachel's bare feet as she stood at the edge of the Charleston shoreline, her toes just grazing the lapping waves. Early morning sunlight bathed the water in soft gold, and seagulls called overhead in lazy circles. The city was still quiet, not yet stirred awake by tourists or joggers. This hour belonged to the calm. She pulled the envelope from her coat pocket. Her name was written in neat, almost hesitant cursive. The return address was familiar, her childhood home. She'd debated for days whether to open it. Something about the weight of it, the guilt stuffed inside, made her wait until she could face it without trembling. Now she unfolded the letter slowly, letting the ocean breeze carry away her old fear. Rachel, I don't know where to begin. I've rewritten this a dozen times. You left so suddenly, and I didn't understand it at first. I still don't fully understand. Maybe I never will. But I want to say I'm sorry for not listening, for assuming, for putting your sister's needs first, for making you feel like the only way to be loved was to be useful. I won't pretend to deserve your forgiveness, but I hope one day you find a way to heal from all of this. You were a good daughter, Rachel. We just weren't good parents. Love, Mum. Rachel read it once, then again, and she waited for the anger. But it didn't come. No spike in her chest. No knot in her throat. Just a quiet exhale, like something long buried finally surfaced and dissolved into the salt air. She folded the letter carefully and placed it back in her pocket. It was a decent letter. Too late, but sincere. She wouldn't send a reply, at least not now. Some words were better left unanswered, not out of cruelty, but closure. She stood still for a few more minutes, watching the tide pull back, then stepped away from the water and walked back toward the car. Later that day, as she was preparing lunch, a knock came at the door. A delivery driver handed her a small cream-coloured envelope tied with a blush satin ribbon. Rachel didn't need to open it to know what it was, but she did anyway. Inside was a formal wedding invitation. Lily and Evan. The rescheduled date. A new location. Smaller, more modest. Still elegant, still excessive. Tucked inside was a smaller handwritten card. I know things got messy, but I really hope you'll come. You're my sister. You always will be. Love, Lily. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of the forged contract, the financial abuse, or the manipulation. Just a request to return. As if nothing had happened. Rachel stared at the card for a long time. She walked to her balcony, sat down at the small table where she drank her morning coffee, and stared out at the fig tree Samantha had given her. Its leaves swayed gently in the warm breeze, tall and strong in the corner of the patio. Then she picked up the envelope, the card, the RSVP. She struck a match. The flame curled slowly along the edge of the paper, golden and hungry. Rachel held it until it was almost too warm, then dropped it into the ceramic bowl she'd brought outside for this very moment. The invitation turned to ash in seconds. She watched until every corner had crumbled, then poured water into the bowl to extinguish the embers. She whispered, not to anyone, but for herself. Some bridges need to burn. And then, quieter, mine just did. That evening, as twilight faded into a velvet sky, Rachel sat at her reclaimed wood desk, a single lamp casting soft light across the pages of a blank note card. The ashes from Lily's wedding invitation still sat in the ceramic bowl on the balcony. She hadn't dumped them yet. It felt right to let them linger a little longer, just until the last word was written. She picked up her favourite pen, the one she'd used in college to sketch her first real design ideas, and began writing. Her hand didn't shake. "Lily, I received your invitation. I'm not coming. I won't attend a wedding where the foundation was built on forgery, silence, and expectation. I won't sit in a room filled with people who cheered when I was being drained and gasped only when I finally said no. You didn't ask for forgiveness, and I'm not offering it like some gift to wrap in a bow and hand back with my RSVP. Because forgiveness, at least for me, doesn't work that way. You see, you don't need my blessing. You need the lesson. You need the silence I left behind, the voicemail I never returned, the balance I refused to cover. You need to feel the weight of your choices, not because I want revenge, but because I want change, for you, for me, for the people you'll hurt next if no one draws a line. I used to think I had to earn love by being useful. I believed family meant sacrificing until you vanished, that my worth came from how much I gave and how little I asked for in return, but I was wrong. Family doesn't drain you, it sustains you. It doesn't take and take and take. It gives back. It shows up. It learns. You never learned, Lily. You took my money, my credit, my name, and now you want my presence. You'll have to settle for this letter instead. This isn't cruelty, it's clarity. Because here's the truth. You don't need my approval to move forward. You need your own integrity to look back. I hope someday you find it, but until then, know this. I didn't walk away from my family because I stopped loving you. I walked away because I finally started loving myself. And love, real love, requires boundaries. Goodbye doesn't always mean hatred. Sometimes it means healing. I wish you peace, even if I won't witness it. Rachel P.S. You were wrong when you called me your ATM. I'm no longer a resource. I'm a woman, and I'm finally free. She folded the card gently and slid it into the envelope. No glitter, no stamp with hearts, just her handwriting and a return address that no one in her family had memorized yet. She didn't need to hear back. The act of writing it was enough. Outside, the sky began to shift again, the stars dimming as the horizon took on a gentle pink hue. Morning crept slowly, washing the quiet city in warmth. Rachel stepped onto the balcony, the soft breeze brushing against her cheek like a promise. She watched the light touch the ocean in the distance, waves glowing like molten silver under the rising sun. She stood still, not in waiting, not in dread, but in peace. For the first time in her adult life, she felt no weight pressing on her shoulders. No anxiety about what would come next, no guilt binding her like chains, only air and light and choice. Some people spend their whole lives trying to escape the gravitational pull of family. Others never realize they were orbiting someone else's center until they crash. Rachel didn't crash, she launched. She turned her face toward the sun, eyes glistening with tears, not of sadness, but of release, and whispered to herself as the light broke fully across the waves, "Families can abandon you, but you get to choose whether to stay." She smiled, soft, unafraid, then turned and stepped back inside, ready to begin her first day of the rest of her life.